Everybody is gambling when most of them shouldn't be. Now, I want to start the video off by saying I'm not here to be some moral or ethical compass telling you whether or not you should gamble as an adult, but there are some unethical things going on that I have to talk about. Now, the first thing I gotta talk about are the kids, because the kids are gambling too, which is where I really started to realize how bad the issue got. Now, last year it was labubus, but this year it is viral glitter dumplings, and honestly, it is probably the most brain rot thing I have ever seen in real life. Essentially, you buy these like dumpling things and they come in different rarities, and the super cool looking ones are, the harder ones to get, obviously. The main problem being that it's being marketed towards kids, and the adults that are making content about it are also making videos for children, because let's be honest, that's just the target demographic. There's no one else really trying to buy this unless you are just like lost your mind or you're trying to just sell this product to kids. Now, originally when I saw this and I was like writing the script, I was thinking like, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's just not that bad, not that big of a problem as I'm thinking it is. But if you really take a second to think about it, they're really just teaching these kids how to be consumers, which is not something you necessarily really want to be in life. And I mean, it was the exact same cycle with like the labubus, as I mentioned. You're pretty much teaching these kids to just go buy these blind boxes and, give in to whatever is trending at the time, which is just not healthy at all, especially when you're like not even in middle school yet. And as I was looking around and doing a bit of research in these videos, first of all, it is not hard to find kids getting extremely upset at their siblings or somebody else around them getting like a better thing out of a blind box than them, and then them just throwing a straight up temper tantrum, which is like, it's normal for like young kids, but like some of these people are in middle school, like 13-year-olds, real life crying because they didn't get the glitter dumpling, bro. Not to mention like everything else that comes out like this. You have to be aware of fakes, so it sparks this culture of people just checking if your glitter dumplings are real or fake, even though, like everything else, they're made in the same exact Chinese factory. But just like Jordans in high school, kids are going around checking other people's glitter dumplings, seeing if they're real or fake, and then just like straight up, outing you for having fake blind boxes. And it's just like, come on, what are we really doing here? So like, let's say you're a parent and you're just trying to like let your kid have the new shiny thing everyone else has, but you like low-key don't got the bread for the real ones, or you just don't know the difference between the real or fake ones. Then your kid has to go to school or go to the playground and get outed for having fake Nido dumplings. Like, it just makes no sense. But outside of the super young audience, the teenagers, I'm gonna be honest, they don't have it much better, because the ads are getting really aggressive for like crypto casinos, prediction markets, and sports betting. So let's just get straight into it. First of all, offshore casinos. This is probably the easiest way for somebody that is underage to gamble. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Now, finding a reputable offshore casino like website to gamble on, that's a different story, but they do exist. And I'm gonna be honest, kids are very efficient when doing research to do something that they probably shouldn't be doing in the first place. Now, the reason offshore specific casinos are what I'm talking about for this instance is because these are the ones that do not age check. A lot of the bigger crypto sites, you have to be 18 because they're going to run the KYC, which is know your customer, to make sure you're actually able to gamble on their site, because they don't want to take the fall for it, because they have real like investors and real, liability. Offshore casinos are not hosted in the US, therefore they do not have to play by those same rules, which is why it's easy for like teenagers to go in here and throw their money away. Now, originally I was going to talk about ripping cards in general, and I can still say that ripping cards is probably one of like the easiest ways to legally gamble nowadays, because the market for like sports cards and like Pokemon cards is so crazy. But there's also apps for this. Rips by Triumph. I can't lie, this is one of the ones I have actually used myself. I put in like 5 to maybe like 20 bucks into this app, and I was like, okay, once I lost it all, I was like, okay, I'm done. Came back the next day. It's just not that easy. But I can't lie, the advertising is pretty smart. The only app with $1 packs, which I don't know how true that is, but I mean, they boast it pretty heavily. Pretty much saying if you're broke, you can still gamble. It doesn't matter. You don't need that much money. Just come gamble with us. But they also explain that you can just sell your pools for exactly the price that it's listed at, or you can ship them to your house, which I'll admit is actually pretty cool. Now, one of the biggest gotchas of this whole thing is that they let you like choose and customize your odds, which makes you feel a lot better about how you're gambling. It's kind of like roulette in a way where you can go and you can put money on green, which is a low chance, but if you do hit, the payout is a lot higher. Or you can select it to have like a more even spread of whether or not you'll break even or lose money. For example, he's going to show this $5 basic pack. This is the second tier pack you can buy for the Pokemon on this app. And it says max pool $100, which fair enough, right? But then you go and you look at the odds. Odds are you're just going to break even or lose most of the time, which is, pretty normal for betting, let's be honest. But 7% to hit a really high value card sounds great until you kind of look at it a little harder. If you choose this option right here on high volatility, you might hit that 7% chance and it'll only be a $9 card. Or you can go to max volatility and you have a 90% chance of just straight up losing and a 10% chance to get a better card. But they do make the minimum pull for the maximum value just higher. But at the end of the day, most of the time, you are never going to win, and by the time you win, you have probably lost way too much money. Now, I do know one person that just won, and they kept winning. But at the end of the day, a lot of the people that do that, they'll maybe pull out 50 to 60% of what they won, and then they'll put a decent amount back into the game and just end up losing it over time anyway. But it's heavily addicting because it feels like you are making the conscious decision on whether or not you're giving yourself better odds. For example, here's a quick Reddit thread, kind of people talking about the same thing I was explaining. Some guy got his account banned because he just kept winning, and they really wouldn't even explain what happened, and he spent over $1,000 on packs. I also saw another guy talking about they are scammers. I set my odds to max, so it should be 10% grails. Half the time I hit a grail, it's a bonus card worth far less than the specified odd amounts. Total BS. Absolute scammers. Obviously, nothing going on here really makes a lot of sense. But one of the main places I see Rip's advertisements is on TikTok. And guess who uses TikTok the most? Kids and teenagers. Come on, bro. Like, let's just be honest. Let's call it what it is. Now, on the topic of TikTok, I have to obviously talk about RainBet. RainBet is known for aggressive advertisement, having every single short form TikTok and like Instagram creator under their belt. And their advertisement is honestly just really aggressive. They used to spam their ads all over TikTok clips of, streamers, which mainly younger people are watching in the first place. But a lot of young adults are also watching streamers, so they see these RainBet's ads all the time. I do think RainBet low-key fell off in that way, but it didn't get much better because it ended up getting replaced with Stake anyway. And I mean, Stake, they do the same thing. I mean, Kick is in partnership with Stake, and everybody knows that Kick and like Kick clippers are everywhere, and it is extremely brutal. It is really hard to avoid if you're in the content creation space or if you just watch any form of YouTuber, streamer, or TikToker. So pretty much everybody and their mother has seen it. But here's the thing, everybody knows, but nobody really cares about this. But a lot of the big streamers that do gamble, like Drake, he's not even really a streamer, obviously, but like Drake gambles on Stake all the time. He vouches for it, he advocates for it, and this is not even the only time he's going to get brought up in this video. You'll see these Kick clips of Trainwrecks or XQC or... Nah, not XQC. Wait, does he do that still? I don't even know if he do that still. Either way, you have to understand these big streamers, they get their accounts filled to the brim with money to gamble with, just because the website is going to make so much off of just the advertising alone. Not to mention they have more than enough money to throw away for advertising because everyone just watches gambling for some reason. It is super massive on Kick. It was massive on Twitch before they kind of like banned it and made it a little different. But at the end of the day, even though there are multimillionaires gambling in your face, most of the time they're not even losing their own money. But now it's time to get into one of the biggest problems on the planet in general. This is probably the most unethical thing going on at the moment, and it is prediction markets. It is terrible. Kalshi, for example, is the biggest or second biggest behind Polymarket, and their advertising just as bad. I just found a money hack, and then it's some girl explaining how you pretty much just can't lose if you're betting on Kalshi prediction markets, which doesn't sound very profitable for the website, does it? But they make it sound like the easiest, most simple way to make money ever, and that if you're not doing it, you're pretty much an idiot. Like, you just have to be doing Kalshi or Polymarket. You have to. 2026 side hustle. Predict the weather. Make $35 repeat daily. Made $270 this week from my bed. Yeah, you might have made $270 from posting this ad. And then look at just the framing of the video. She's just sitting down, couch, covered up in blankets, looking as comfortable as possible while making money. But calling it a side hustle to me is just genuinely, it doesn't get funnier than that. There's nothing side hustle about gambling. Unless you're doing some form of like skillful way of doing it, like maybe like poker. Like, I could see that. But let's just be honest, these ads are just so dumb. But like, look at the advert, look at the way they word the captions. Legal in all 50 states. They make sure you know that it's legal. Because you know why? Online betting and gambling used to be insanely difficult to do even like 10 years ago. It was really hard to gamble online. That's why like CSGO and CSGO crate websites were so massive, which is something I also, honestly, I was a victim, bro. I was a victim of this. When I was younger, CSGO gambling websites were massive. I had CSGO skins and they really weren't even that much money. And I was dropping my Christmas money on CSGO crates every time. But like, why wouldn't I, right? Because the guys that I watch play the game, and I just loved playing the game originally, right? CSGO, just a fun game. But then you see people like Sparkles, right? This is someone I watched growing up. All he talked about was skins and like opening skins. He did that a lot, and he still does it. Gambling, unfortunately, is going to be evergreen because at the end of the day, it's just human nature to want to gamble. Like, it's always been some type of gambling going on for hundreds of years, right? But like, look at his content, right? A lot of the stuff that isn't trade ups or opening cases doesn't do remotely as good as the gambling content. But back to the prediction markets, right? Because obviously, they have some, realistic, regular trades, like some sports gambling trades. But where it gets a little different is when you're betting on things like, what will Trump say this week? Warsh or communism? Why are you allowed to bet on this? But here's where one of the biggest problems is, right? You can bet on things like how many different countries will Israel strike in 2026. This is just morally wrong. But also, this opens the door to a lot of insider trading. And we already know because this has happened already. There was a few Israeli people that were, I think, politicians or soldiers or some form of government asset. And what they did was place a bet on if the Israeli military would take action against Iran before July. And they put like $150,000 each on this bet. I think it was two guys. But it was a bit suspicious, right? Because they made their accounts about a week before making these $150,000 bets. And it was obvious that it was just insider trading. And these people knew that they were going to strike. But this is not something that's just only for like politicians or super higher ups. I saw this clip from Kish Swim, which is a streamer that I watch. And he was just talking about this just passively earlier. And I want you to hear what he had to say.
Now, and like I said, Drake shutting out Polymarket is not even a Drake thing. He's a product of the environment we're currently in. Because he's not gonna be the first or the last rapper to talk about Polymarket or Kalshi on a song. There's gonna be a rapper making a Kalshi bar. There's gonna be another rapper making a Polymarket bar.
He's talking about how in Drake's new album or one of his new songs, he made a bar about Kalshi or Polymarket or whatever, right? Which is honestly shows us the direction we're heading in. It's just being adopted into pretty much everyday pop culture, which is just not good because it's just going to spread. Let's be honest, it's going to spread a lot more. But he also talks about insider trading as well here, and how DJ Academics made a bet on something about Drake's new album. But obviously, DJ Academics would know because he's homies with Drake, right?
Kalshi does it too, but it's flagrant insider trading. Because DJ Academics placed the bet that Lil Baby won't be on the Drake albums. He won the bet. He knew that though. That's the thing. He was hanging out with Drake the same. He knew. He's a music journalist #1, a Drake fan. He definitely knew. So that's literally insider trading. Like,
So again, just another case of that people that will tell you to use these apps or talk about placing bets on these apps, they are not playing the same game as you, and you will never be playing the same game as them. But there's not much more I wanted to say. I just wanted to bring up how like widespread this gambling issue is, and how like kids are pretty much getting groomed into being gamblers later in life if they don't learn like what's wrong with what they're doing, which is largely, I'm not gonna lie, on their parents and their environment. But I just thought it would be good to spread a little bit of light on this issue, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, follow my Twitch, pull up on other socials as well, and I'll see you in the next one.